Hey, welcome to Russell Cooks. Thanks for joining me. I've had all this leftover ricotta, so I want to use it up. So I'm going to be making lemon ricotta pound cake. Now, typically you can do pancakes, you can use ricotta. I use it for lasagna, you can make cannoli filling and whatnot. I'm just going to do a pound cake. We're going to try it out, and hopefully we make it a little extra fluffy and a little extra rich. And enough ricotta. I'm going to try and make 2 pound cakes. We'll see. You know, it's in the oven for an hour. I've never done this before. Hopefully these techniques follow through and we end up with a very light crumb. Delicious, rich, not overly sweet pound cake. All right, first things first, we got to get our dry ingredients. Now, pound cake, you typically want to use cake flour. Well, if you follow me on Twitter, I discovered that cake flour is not available really in stores all that much. It's more of a specialty order thing. Oh, that stinks. So I got AP flour, which is amazing, but it's not going to make that really light crumb that we're looking for. So cake flour is typically 6 to 8% protein, whereas AP flour is 10, 11, 11.5%. Bread flour is even higher. It can be upwards of 16% of the protein, and that means gluten. And more gluten means, you got it, more chewiness and more chew. And I don't want that in a cake. I want it delicate. I don't want it short, but I want it delicate. So this recipe calls for 1.5 cups of flour. Typically, for every cup of AP flour, you add a couple tablespoons of cornstarch, and that helps cuts it down. So I'm going to do 1 1/3 cups of AP flour and then 2 heaping tablespoons of cornstarch. I'm going to get my knife. So I'm just going to whisk all this together. Now I'm going to get working on my wet ingredients, which I'm going to use actually a food processor for. We'll get to that in a minute. It just helps whipping things up. I don't want to necessarily use a stand mixer. I could do it in a bowl. Food processor is going to make it just a lot easier, and it'll whip in a lot more of that air, and hopefully we'll get a nice light and fluffy cake. Pound cake. And I don't actually know, maybe one of you all knows the origin of the name pound cake. Was it that it cost £1 and it was in England? I've heard rumors that it was because you used a pound of sugar, a pound of flour, and a pound of butter to make it. So it was a pound cake. Pretty sure that that's false. So I don't know. If you know, let me know. All right, let's do a couple of heaping tablespoons here. Cornstarch. So this is essentially just my cake flour. All right, we got to get a bunch of baking powder in here. I'm going to shoot for a scant tablespoon, so maybe 2.5 teaspoons. There's no baking soda in here. And about a teaspoon of kosher salt. So if you have table salt, cut it in half to half a teaspoon. I don't want it overly salty. Now typically you might strain this through a fine mesh strainer. My kosher salt's going to be a little bit too big. You really want to use table salt here. I don't happen to have table salt. I might. Well, it's too late regardless. So I don't want my salt to get filtered out. I'm whisking this. You want to do a good job. And I might actually, when I add this to the wet ingredients, put it through my whisk as I'm turning just to break up any lumps. You don't want to stir a lot, especially if you're using AP flour. That'll develop gluten. We're not doing that today. All right, wet ingredients now. We're going to turn to my food processor. I'm going to put all this stuff into the food processor at the same time, and then while it's running, I'm going to pour in, I've got 6 tablespoons of melted butter here. I'm going to pour that in. It's warm. It's not going to cook anything. Hopefully it gets incorporated, and yeah, everything works out. All right, so let's do 3 eggs. Let's do our ricotta first. Now it's important when you get ricotta that I like whole milk. Don't get part skim, it might make it a little bit too watery. More importantly, get one that doesn't have a bunch of add-in ingredients. So the ingredient list, this is Calabro, and I know Belgioso, or however it's pronounced, is the same. It's just whole milk, vinegar, and salt. That's it. There's no gums, there's no There's no filler, there's nothing. It's just the 3 main ingredients, and that will actually help with a lot of things, including graininess. So if you ever have grainy ricotta, it's probably because you don't get it with just the 3 ingredients. They sneak stuff in there. Stabilizers, guargum. Yeah, I don't need any of that. Don't need any of that. All right. It looks like I'm going to have enough for 2. So this is perfect. So 1.5 cups of this ricotta. Let's get 3 eggs in there. 1. I always need to count it out loud. Just have it from cooking school. 2. 3. 3 whole eggs. All right, now we're going to do about 1.5 cups of sugar. This counts as a liquid ingredient here. It's interesting because it's sugar. I know I say this every time. It's both a liquid and a dry ingredient. Go figure. 2, 3. Vanilla. I'm going to use a couple teaspoons here. Vanilla is amazing. Everyone's like, oh, it's so vanilla, meaning like plain. It's one of the most complex flavors out there. Hey, you know what? I'm going to do 3. 3 teaspoons or a tablespoon. Vanilla smells great. Don't taste it. Don't taste it direct. It tastes horrible. Learned that one once. All right, I need lemon zest and lemon juice. Make sure you wash your lemons before you zest them. Because the zest is going in, you're eating the zest. If it fell on the floor in the supermarket or rolled around or whatever, you don't want any of that. So I'm hoping to get at least a teaspoon, preferably 2 teaspoons of lemon zest in here. I'm going to do about 2 tablespoons of juice. So you can typically get up to 3 tablespoons of juice from a single lemon. The really juicy ones maybe a little bit more and the drier ones less. All right, that looks right. Let's measure it here. Yep. 2 teaspoons. Scraper. Please, just buy a bench scraper and use it. I'm good at estimating, so that's all I need. This is a super juicy lemon. 2 tablespoons. All right. Please measure. This is baking. All right, let's get this thing going. I'm gonna run it for about 30 seconds. I'll scrape down the sides and then I'll run it some more. Everything's gonna land here. I'm gonna fold in, whisk in the flour, if you will. As clean as we go. Also, ooh, this is important. I've preheated my oven to 350. Preheated to 350. Middle rack, 350. It's good. And now with it running, I'm going to slowly pour in butter. Remember, I'm only using 6 tablespoons of butter. It doesn't seem a lot for a pound cake, which tend to be a little bit greasier. That's because I got all the fat from the ricotta. And did you know most of these, especially Cuisinart, I believe is the one that patented it, not positive, they have a tiny hole in here. And that hole is for when you're making a mayonnaise in here. You got your egg, maybe a little lemon juice, salt, cayenne pepper. What you do is you have this in here and you put the oil in here and it'll drizzle the oil in at the correct rate in order to get a perfect emulsification. A little bit of mustard. All right. Ooh, yeah, I see bubbles. That means we got air getting incorporated. I don't know if you guys can see those bubbles. Oh, it's smooth. It's almost like a mascarpone. So I only added a little bit of flour. So hopefully I won't over whisk this. I don't want any streaks. I don't want any lumps. I don't want to overmix. So good luck. All right, we're good. I don't want to take it any farther. Let's get one of my pans here. This is an 8 in 1/2 by 4.5 pan. Typically you have 9 by 5s, so hopefully this fits. I don't want any sort of overflow. Remember, it's going to expand when it's in the oven. Perfect. So if I do a 9 by 5, I might trim down the cook time. Cook time for pound cakes typically almost an hour. So 350, yeah. All right, I'm not going to tap it down because I want some of that air that I whipped into it still there. All right. Save that. We're going to get this in the oven. I'm going to set a 50-minute timer. Alexa, set a 50-minute timer, please. All right, let's do the whole thing again. All right, this is an 8.5 by 4 inch loaf pan. I'm going to cook it for 50 to 60 minutes. If you have a 9 by 5, check your cook time at maybe 45 minutes. You stick the toothpick in it, see whether it's done. I am not going to tap this down because I want the air in there. Let's get this in the oven. It's been about 25 minutes since my last one went in, so I'm going to rotate it. Alexa, set a 55-minute. Whoa. Yeah, look at this. Look how light and fluffy that looks. Sort of jiggles. Just some moist crumbs. Perfect. Can't wait to cut into this guy. Whoa. Let me rotate the other one. Oh yeah. This is the other one, by the way. Looking really good. Pretty consistent, right? Looking almost identical. Alexa, add 5 more minutes to that timer. All right, you're going to want to let this rest. Then you invert it, flip it, and put it on here, and you're going to let it rest for another couple hours. So 10 minutes, get it out of the pan so it doesn't steam the bottom. So you got a nice crust. Yeah, it's so crispy. I want to dig into it, but then you have to let it cool. You have to let it cool all the way. 4 hours. If it takes 4 hours, it takes 4 hours. You don't want to cut into hot bread. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for joining. I really appreciate it. I'm going to call it a day. This was fun. I liked it. Can't wait to have this. I got 2 loaves, one for me, one for family next door. You can eat it as is. You can cut it up and sear it with a little bit of butter, put some ice cream on it, strawberries. You have fun with it. So thanks again for joining, and I'll see you guys next time. All right. Take care.